poetry class and extra friends that might be joining us today. I hope you're all having a really good day today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys just as soon as we possibly can. In the meantime, I have a lesson prepared for you that I hope you will enjoy. In our poetry class, what we've been doing is starting our day off with a poem of the day. And so today's lesson will be no different. We're going to start off with a poem of the day, and I'm going to read you some poetry reflection questions to reflect on after we read the poem of the day. But I'm going to give them to you now so you kind of have those thoughts ready in your mind to be thinking about the answer of when the poem's over. So here's your questions, your reflection questions for the poem of the day. Your first question is, what was your favorite part of this poem and why? Who do you think would enjoy this poem and why? And is there a part of this poem that you would like to happen in real life? So you can be kind of thinking about those questions while I read the poem of the day to you. Another thing I want you to be thinking about while I read the poem is, pardon me, mood versus tone. And that's something that we've talked a lot about in our poetry class. And just a refresher, tone is kind of what the author wanted to, kind of the feeling the author wanted to give about a poem. And a mood is the feeling that the reader gets when they read the poem. So I want you to kind of be thinking about the tone. What is the tone of the poem that the author set? And what is the mood? What is the mood that you get or you feel when you hear this poem read to you? So without further ado, our poem of the day is called When the World Turned Upside Down by Margaret Savage. All right, and this is a bit of a tongue twister poem, so bear with me. When the World Turned Upside Down. The day when the world turned upside down, when a frown became a smile, and a smile became a frown, when the mice chased the cats chased the dogs laughed out loud at the pink and yellow frogs. When you went to bed in the daytime and got up at night, when birds caught the school bus and the cows took flight, when the moon came out in the middle of the day and all of the ocean's fish rolled around in the hay, when the children ruled the world and ice cream was for free, and the elephant shrank to the size of a flea, when the grass rained lollipops up to the sky, when you wanted to laugh, but you could only cry, when magic beans were real and giants very small. You would eat spiders' legs so you could creep up the wall. This all happened when the world turned upside down after I went to bed with a smile, not a frown. So that is When the World Turned Upside Down by Margaret A. Savage. I hope you enjoyed that poem. It's very interesting. You can, if you would like, leave me some thoughts on that poem. You can tell me about the mood that it created for you, or you can leave me some adjectives that you would use to describe this poem. I already know some of the things that some of you would say. But you can leave them because I'd like to hear it from your own selves with your mother's permission. Pardon my cough. Okay, so you're also welcome to leave answers to those poetry reflection questions, what your favorite part of the poem was, who you think would enjoy it, and if there was a part of the poem that you would like to happen in real life. That's kind of exciting to think about. All right, so now that we're done with our poem of the day, I'm going to explain to you our project for this lesson. And this week, we're going to be focusing on point of view poems. Point of view poems. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about a point of view poem, or point of view poems, what they are, and then I'm going to read an example to you, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about it, and then have a couple surprise change up, throwing some craziness into our lesson, because I always like to keep it exciting like that. So, what is a point of view poem? A point of view poem is a poem written by a human author as if they were another thing. And it's written in the point of view as if they were that thing. So I'm going to read a very short point of view poem to you. I slither along in a muddy space. I like to sit in a nice cool place. I move quite slow. I like to dig. From my view, the world's so big. My shell is a quiet place to hide and is quite nice when you're inside. So I bet you guys can guess what thing the author was putting themselves in the point of view of in that poem. That poem is kind of written a little bit as a riddle, pardon me, for you to kind of guess who the author is becoming in this poem. When you write your point of view poem, you don't have to write it as a riddle. You can if you would like, but just be creative, and you can write it however you would like. So a couple things about a point of view poem. Point of view poems are written as if the author was the object or animal. So if you put yourself in the position of a mouse, okay, I want you to think, if I were a mouse, what would I see? What would everything look like to me? You have to, try to imagine yourself being very, very small, and you can even lay down on the ground and kind of look up and see, try to put yourself in that perspective. If I were a mouse, what would I maybe think about? If I were a mouse, what would I taste? If I were a mouse, what would I hear? And if I were a mouse, what would sounds sound like? Would they be louder to me? Would they be quieter to me? Depends on where you are, maybe, if you were a mouse. If I were a mouse, what are things that I would touch? What would my experience be? What would I be excited about, or what would I be fearful of? So you just kind of have to ask yourself those questions to get yourself in the mindset of the mouse, because that's what you would be becoming if you were writing a poem, a point of view poem about being a mouse. So another thing about point of view poems is they use personification. Now, personification is something that we talked about in week 1. Miss Heather talked to you guys about personification while I was absent. But if you remember, and if you don't, I'll refresh your memory. Personification is when you give human traits to things that are not human. Okay, so with that example of a mouse, if I'm going to write a poem, a point of view poem about a mouse, I'm going to pretend that I have human thoughts, even though I'm not human. I'm a mouse, in fact. If I were writing a point of view poem about a TV, I would also give the TV some human thoughts, even though it's not human. You could, pardon me, sometimes personification is talking about giving human traits to non-human things, and one of those traits can be thoughts. So that's specifically what we're talking about with these point of view poems. It's like a tongue twister saying. Okay, so put yourself in the position of, use personification for, and lastly, I want you to write your poems in the first person. So what that means is I want you to write it as if you were that thing. So if I were writing a point of view poem about a mouse, as I've kind of already said, I'm just going to pretend that I am a mouse. I'm going to use pronouns like I and me if I use pronouns in my poem. Instead of saying the mouse or it, I will say I and me to write a poem in the first person. I hope that makes sense to you. So yeah, that's what I want to do. I want you guys to write some point of view poems. Now, a couple things just for guidance. Pardon my cough. You can write these poems to rhyme if you would like, but they do not have to. You can remember your rhyming patterns, so you can have them rhyming, every 2 lines. It can be like A, B, B, C, C, where the first 2 lines rhyme, and then the third and fourth line rhyme with each other, or you can do a completely different rhyming pattern. You can do the A, B, C, B, or A, B, A, B. And for people who are in my poetry class, that might make a little more sense to you than others who are listening who aren't. But it can rhyme if you would like, but it doesn't have to. With this, if you want to get super creative and you want to make a concrete poem out of this point of view poem, you're welcome to do that too. And if you remember, the concrete poems are, I'm going to grab one actually, just to show those who aren't in my class. We actually talked about concrete poems the last time we met. Concrete poems are poems that take a concrete shape, and they usually take a shape of whatever the poem is about. So here's one, if you can see it, called The Giraffe, and see how the poem is actually written as the giraffe's neck. So it can rhyme, it cannot rhyme. You can make it a concrete poem. It doesn't have to be. You can kind of take creative liberty to make it whatever you would like your poem to be. You can have it be a septet or a limerick. And if you don't remember how many syllables are in those types of poems, look in your folder, and you should still have information from those. You should still have those worksheets in there that would help you out. If you're not in my poetry class and you would like to know more about septet poems or limericks and how you could turn a point of view poem into a septet or into a limerick, you can just let me know and I'll give you more information about that. All right, so one of the fun things, one of the surprises I'm going to do, what I would like to do is I'm going to go through a list of all of the people who are currently in my poetry class. And in class, what we would have done is I would have given you a list of some topics or ideas. Like if you were struggling to come up with what you wanted to write your poem about, like I don't really want to write my poem about being a mouse. I don't even like mice. But what do I want to make my point of view poem about? So I had some ideas and topics for you guys. But we're going to be a bit creative. And I have this little bucket here that I'm going to, I promise this is all done right now. It's not rigged. So I'm going to call your name out, and then I'm going to pull one of these topics out, and I'm going to tell you what your poem can be about. Now, what I want to let you know is, just like we did with the headbands cards topics, when we did the septet poems, whatever I pull out for you, if you decide, I don't really like that idea either, and I kind of wanted to be a rainbow, you make your poem about whatever you want. This is just kind of a fun thing if you needed help with an idea. If your name isn't called because you're not in my class, you can just decide something on your own if you wanted to write a poem, or if one of these just sounds really exciting to you, you can choose that. Okay, so Mr. Zebediah, I'm not going to choose that one, I'm going to pick a different one. Your poem can be about, dog. Okay, Nate, you got a chair. You'll be really creative with that one. That could be a really funny poem. Okay, Lucy, Miss Lucy, a frog. Cute. All right, Beckham, you got a goldfish. And Mr. Peyton, a squirrel. That would be fun. Cam, a worm. You could be super creative with that. Nola, a ceiling fan. That could be a fun point of view poem. Esther, this is going to be a fun one. Venus flytrap. I'm excited to hear what that will sound like. Kiara, a person who is 10 feet tall. That'd be fun. And Abigail, a pencil. that could be fun. So again, you guys, with these topics, I really want you to take some time thinking about them before you start writing your poem. So think, if I were a pencil, where would I be stored? What would I see? What would happen to me? What would my experience be? What would I look forward to? Or what would I not want to happen? Is there anything that I would taste or think or hear? What would I hear? And when I say the word taste, so some of these objects, well, some of these topics are objects. They're not even living things. So can a ceiling fan taste anything? If you're creative, you can think that it could. Or a pencil, or some of these other things. So get really creative with it. Let's say that you got a worm or a Venus flytrap, and you're like, I don't even know what a Venus flytrap is, or a worm, like, I don't know what it eats. This is a really good opportunity for you to ask your mom and dad if you have any books about those particular things. And if you don't, maybe with your parents' permission, you could do a little research on your particular topic before you write your poem. And again, if you didn't like the topic that got pulled out of the bucket for you, you can choose something else. That was just for fun. Okay, one last thing on our lesson for just an extra little bit of fun. I have these partner poem worksheets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this file to Enrich via email, I think, unless I could link it somehow on Facebook. I don't even know how all that works. But I will find a way to make it accessible to your parents. And if you would like an extra challenge on your point of view poem, I would like you to write it in partner form. So what that means is, if you have a sibling you would like to choose to write this poem with, or maybe an adult in your home, you guys would take turns. The partner poem here, it has it rhyming. So it has a rhyming pattern of A, A, B, B. And what you would do is, one person would write one line. So let's say that I chose a mouse, and I would write one line about the mouse I would write one line about myself as a mouse, and I would start it. And then I would take my paper and I would give it to my partner, and I would let them write a line that rhymes with the line that I just wrote, and then would take turns back and forth. Just kind of something creative and fun to mix it up a little bit when you're writing this poem. If you'd rather write it all on your own, you're welcome to, but if you want to shake it up a little bit like that and work with a sibling or work with your parent to make something extra fun, I will send that to you guys so that you have access to it. Yeah, super fun. Okay, so if you guys write any poems, or let's say that you finished one of the septet poems that we got started in class that you hadn't shared yet, or you finished one of your concrete poems, or you did the challenge of a phone number poem and you wanted to share it, I would love, love, love to see them. I would be so encouraged by your work. You guys just really always surprise me on how creative you are and the things that you come up with. So with your parents' permission, you could share a video of yourself reading your poem. You could share a picture of yourself with the poem, or you could share just a picture of the poem that you wrote, especially if it's a concrete poem that has a shape to it. It'd be really nice to see. Or else you could just share the words that you wrote. I'd be really encouraged to be able to see some of those poems and see some of the work that you guys do while we're away, and I will look forward to that and look forward to seeing all of your faces. I hope that you have enjoyed this lesson, and I will hopefully, God willing, be posting more until we are meeting in person again. Have a great day and take care, and God bless you all. Bye.